Raise your hand if you learned something new today. That's right. God is good, and he's always there, right? And I don't think that you have to think about it in the fluffy kind of God is good. You know, when everything's going great and you think you've got it all figured out, right? We're not as desperate. We're not as desperate to hear his voice. We're not as desperate to see him in the little things. You guys know, like when the cardinal comes by, there's the myth that that's a loved one. And I love when spring comes around because I get to see my grandpa and I get to see my grandma and things like that. But I also look for the God winks in life. And those are just the little tiny subtle yeses. The green light, the front row parking. If you're not thanking God for those moments too, right, then we sort of miss it. We miss it in the mundane. And I actually heard a pastor say this, like, if you're able to maintain in the mundane, things will be okay. But when we get desperate, things are still going to be okay. They're just not our okay, right? I've heard this analogy too, and I really love it. If you think about the busy intersections, let's just call it New York City, right? And there's 4 lanes going this way and 4 lanes going that way and this way and that way. And we're trying to cross the street as a pedestrian. If we do not wait for this light to turn red and that light to turn red and that light to turn red, we're going to walk right into the intersection of a busy street and not get to our destination. So we have to wait for God to stop something here, stop something over here, and stop something over here before we're free to walk safely. So I tell that to my clients all the time. Like, if you're trying to create the storm of which is God's ability to navigate each one of those red lights, then we're trying to do God's work for him. And that never ends well, right? And so that's where we say, maybe it's in the patience. And you never pray for patience, right? Because he will test it every time. So Stephanie, thank you for giving us so many different stories of people that you trust to share, because I get to share mine now, if you guys are cool with it. She gave me a long time, just so you know. And I won't keep us after lunch because I know how important that is, right? It's part of my rent check. So my story has a little bit of everybody's story in here except for the military piece, I have to tell you. And the ironic thing I think even about that is that I actually was asked to go into the military because of my grades, and I passed so many of the tests. You know how we have like the FCAT here? Well, in Michigan, where I grew up, anybody been there? Yeah, you're not proud of it. I'm not either. When I moved to Florida, I was like, oh my gosh, have you guys seen the color green? Michigan is gray, and that's it. But they asked me, and I lied and said I was 5'2" and severely overweight because I was just like, no, I can't do it. I felt like I was called to do something else. And then I applied for the Peace Corps, but they rejected me too. It's okay because God had a different plan. I had no idea what my plan was, except for that I was going to be a doctor or the president of the United States, one or the other. And I grew up in a very small town, less than the size of the population of UWF before football. So if you can imagine, everybody knew everybody's name. And my 3rd grade teacher was the same as my mom's, so I always got called the wrong name. But my parents had lived there. In fact, I found out through the ancestry shenanigans that you could trace our family back all the way to 1650. So on the same farm that had lots of acreage until my grandma sold it, and now it's no longer in our family. But that to me actually made a lot of sense on like the way that we do things. Our culture was very sheltered and very limited. In fact, we didn't have any diversity until I was a sophomore when we had the very first black cheerleader. Like, that's how segregated we were. But we didn't know any better, you know? So that's why I wanted to get out and see the world. I would be the first person to go to college and graduate. And I moved down here in 2004 to go to the University of West Florida as my escape route. What you don't know is that regardless of my really well upbringing, my childhood got stunted at 17 years old by the coach in my high school who was the male track coach. Now, by looking at me, I identify as a female, and I do not run unless being chased. So I had no reason to be involved with the male track coach. But my best friend was an athlete who lived 7 houses down from him. And much like my friends on stage, we all get invited to the party that goes wrong. And I know that as adolescents, we think we have it all figured out. We think we're in control. I was an honors student. I had a car. I had the very first cell phone. But you guys remember Nextel, right? Yeah, I had one of those. And my parents trusted me. I had a job that I worked on the weekends as a sophomore, junior, and senior, and I sold ice cream. So I had a plan. So when I was spending the night at my friend's house, they didn't have any reason to suspect something would go awry. But we won states that year in the males track division, and it was a huge deal where I lived. So the coach had spread a huge white canopy tent, had a pig roast, had all the friends and family invited. I went down there with my friend to spend the night at her house, and we walked down to the coach's house. At about 8:30 at night on a Friday, he says, "Hey guys, thanks for a great season. Thank you for a great year. I'll kick the kids out around 10, free to go." And much like, small towns where we have your youth group or maybe, some other extracurricular, like you're having it at an adult's house. Typically, though, it's the adult of somebody who else is a part of that. He did not have teenage children. He had a small son that was only a year old, and he was married. So there was this weird feeling between the guys on the track team, things that were happening behind closed doors that I just didn't really know, because obviously I wasn't a part of it, but I could see by wandering the halls. And what he had was this sort of elitist club. He had told players that, like, if they failed a test, he would go help get extra credit. Or if they missed a practice, he'd help them make it up if they did some running around for him. And so when I started to see this, it also became a little more elevated. Like, if they had an absence, he'd go get it excused, or pay for their lunch, or take them out to lunch. This special treatment, right? So these guys trusted him because he also preyed on the guys who came from single-parent families and didn't have dads. So I'm at the coach's house. It's night. He brings us inside of his house into his finished basement, which sounds like every horror movie ever invented. But in Michigan, we have like the big screen TV, the foosball table. That's like your hangout space. And so we were down there, and I want you to think back. Now, who here was not born before 2000? Y2K. Okay, so we're gonna have this moment down memory lane, Wendy. And you may understand, you may not. But this is my favorite part, what was Blockbuster's motto about bringing back your movie? Be kind, rewind, right? So as I go through this next session of my story, I want you to think about intentionality. Intentionality, okay? He gets us down into this basement, and we're all sitting around. There's about 12 of us, sophomores through seniors, and he says to the group, "I want y'all to watch this movie, but I don't want to be responsible for pushing play." And the funny kid of the group breaks the tension, right, really quick, and jumps up and pushes play on the VCR, which played a movie, right? So it meant it was rewound for viewing. And it's a homemade porn by 2 of our friends. And I know the girl in the movie because I tutored her in math. And I can't make this part up. The movie ends about 3 minutes later with the terrible techno music and everything. And literally as it stops, the main characters walk down into the basement. And we're all sitting there in shock, like, what do we do? And the coach knew exactly what to do. He turns down the lights, he turns up the music, and now it's a party. And he opens the bar that had been dry before, is now filled with alcohol. And you could tell some people had been to some of these parties before, because they jumped into action and they start pouring drinks, and now everybody's allowed to have alcohol with this coach because he's not going to tell anybody, right? And some people think it's cool. I sort of look at my best friend like, the heck are we here for? And she sort of quiets me by saying, hey, go play, Mario Kart with Eric. And I'm really good at Mario Kart, so I took the challenge and sat over there and played while she said, I'm going to just talk to this other friend real fast. So I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't have a reason to take a beverage. But I must have. And I don't even remember that part, because the next memory I have is my head hitting the back of a hot tub And my friends are taking turns with me, raping me one at a time, while the coach is above on the balcony camcordering. You guys remember camcorders, right? So I was imagining like your cell phone's all of a sudden being peeped on you, and you find out while this is happening. And I panicked. I look at guy one, guy two, I was like, oh, and I like jump out. And I try to find my clothes, and you try to put pants on when you're wet, right? I'm falling all over the place. I'm discombobulated. I don't know what's going on. And I walk back into the basement, and I'm pushed up against the wall by the linebacker of our football team saying, "You're too drunk to drive. You can't go anywhere." I don't drink. This doesn't make sense. How did I get in the hot tub, right? My memory's all messed up. And so I'm trying to find my keys and my wallet and things. Like, I don't know how I even got into this situation. People are sort of laughing. I guess I pass out. I don't really know, because the next memory I have is my stuff was neatly packed on top of the coffee table that I fell asleep under. And my phone and my keys were right there, and I had been washed like somebody else's shampoo. I'm an Herbal Essence girl. I smell like Head and Shoulders, not chlorine. So I panic, right? Because I see the basement and there's nobody in there. So it's clearly morning. And I run out the back door because I'm too afraid to go out the front door that I came in the night before. Now, you heard a few other stories similar to mine at this point. And what did they do? They just kept going. They didn't know how to ask for help. They weren't really sure what just happened. You're abusers in the same space, you know? So I ran down to my car, and I have to make a decision. And this is where, when I talk to youth especially, I ask this question. You have a choice right now, right? What are you gonna do? I could go into my best friend's house, randomly show up at like 8 a.m, and her parents are like, "Hey, Alicia, what are you doing here? I thought you were supposed to spend the night," and have to answer that question, which I didn't have an answer to. I could go home, right? My parents are loving and trusting, but I also know that my parents are in their own sort of domestic violence situation. My dad's a narcissist. My mom's an empath. They don't get along. So I could try to explain it to them, or I can go to work, and none are the wiser. So I did what every victim does, and we just keep going, and we try to process this thing that just happened to us. And I get to work, and my supervisor is like 3 years older than me, and I go to her and I say, "Hey, I think I had sex with 2 guys in one night last night. Like, what does that mean?" Looking for some sort of answer, some sort of help. And she says, "Well, you might as well get used to being called a slut, because that's all you'll ever be known as." I'm silenced by my first person who could help me. That doesn't sound right? So I do my job. I work my 6 hours serving ice cream with a smile. I get home. I take a hot, scalding shower. I wash everywhere, right? And then I call my best friend and I say, "Hey, you left me at that party last night. I think I was raped." I use the word that they taught us in school, where no means no, and stranger danger, and dare to just say no to drugs. And I don't really even know how to use this next piece of my life, because I was taught in fear-based training, right, that you just say no and you're gonna be fine. Well, what if you don't have the chance to say no, is the question. Nobody teaches us that. So I started to sort of, ask her all these questions, like, what happened? Why did you leave? Did you see it? Like, did you really record it? I just had these foggy memories. And she's like, "Alicia, if you don't really remember, you don't want to go around accusing anybody, do you? These guys have full ride scholarships to Michigan and Michigan State. You're going to ruin their life over something you don't remember." Does that sound a little scripted? Yeah. But she's my best friend. I don't like it, but I take it. That's the second person I tried to tell who silenced me. You think I'm going to go to the police now? Kids, especially at that age, are going to use their peers as truth. What's going on with them is what's going on with you. So if that's the truth, I don't remember, I must have done it, I am accusing people, then that must be the real truth, and I'm the problem. So how do you remove a problem? You try everything in your power, right? To avoid the situation, to avoid the people, to, recreate something. I thought it was over because I left, but I just got initiated into what's called human trafficking. This is not what you're going to see on the news. It's not a stranger who randomly comes by in the white van and picks you up and takes you to a third world country. No, what he did with the clique of the guys that he had created, these are now the buyers, and he's the trafficker. So the trafficker is going to create scenarios in which sex can occur for an exchange of something. This is sex work, okay? So he was exchanging these things, the extra credit, the excused absences, the meals, the rides, the uniforms, the things that kids need. He didn't have to pay them $1 to get this exchange, because what he did to them is say, hey, I did all this for you, now you got to do this for me. And you don't want to go to college a virgin, do you? That's weak, right? That's not a man. So he was teaching them things, and they believed him, because who else are they going to believe with no other real healthy male figure in their life? And typically, no offense, moms, but we're trying to work 2 and 3 jobs to be able to take care of our kids, so we don't really have that opportunity either. And it's not to say that we don't try. This guy just had more power, more influence, more credibility, more charisma, and he wins because he took care of those kids in different ways and when they needed it. And so they believed him. I don't necessarily think they all agreed on making sex tapes, but Paris Hilton had just had hers leaked at that time, so now it's cool. Anyway, back to 2003. We sort of had this unspoken thing like, hey, now you're a part of this club, Alicia. So when we call you, you have to answer. And you don't say yes because you want to. The gift giving, the buying of things start happening. This is the love bombing stage. It's very similar to domestic violence when we talk about the DV wheel. It starts with that honeymoon. You feel really good. They do a lot of nice things for you. And then there's the accident. Well, my accidents happen to be on Friday and Saturday nights at graduation parties while the parents are celebrating their kids' victory upstairs. I'm being raped in the basement. I was drugged more than I can count. I didn't even know that alcohol, you could have 1 or 2 drinks. Like, I just thought you blacked out. That's how my experience was, because the coach made his own date rape drug. You guys remember GHB? It was really popular back then. It's colorless, odorless, tasteless. You don't know it's in your drink. So if I have a sip of Boone's Farm, Zima, remember those? Right? That was going to make me drunk, because he was doing that on purpose. He was creating this vulnerability when we were already vulnerable. So to be a victim of sex trafficking as a child, you don't have to prove force, fraud, or coercion. Only if you're an adult. What's force? Physical force, verbal force, right? What's fraud? Somebody's lying about who they are, what they do. What's coercion? This one's harder. It's master manipulation. It's made to think that you said yes to something and you deserve that thing, because what else are you going to do about it? Right? They make you feel good about it, or they lie about what they're doing, or they force you into what you're doing. That guy's saying, you're too drunk to drive, you can't go anywhere. That's force. But I didn't have to prove that. I just had to have a testimony. And I was ashamed. I was fearful. I was afraid that this guy was going to hurt me. So I had to show up. Because if I didn't, when I did push back, my car tires got slashed. They put dog poop on my windshield. They threatened my little brother. They threatened to kill my dog. Like, all of these things were in exchange. So I had to choose the lesser of 2 evils. Hurt my family or hurt me? You're not going to hurt my family. I'll take it as a sacrifice, right? And so over the summer, it became literal hell on earth. And I didn't know where to go, who to talk to. My parents started asking questions like, why was I acting out? I must be afraid of going to college. I must be a hormonal teenager. I must be promiscuous. That's my favorite one. I must have wanted this to happen to me because I kept putting myself out there like that. Yeah, no, that's not what's really happening, right? But I don't have the words for it. We don't know what this thing is even called yet. The Trafficking Victims Protection Act didn't come into legislation until 2000. So in my small town in 2003, had no idea about trafficking. And much of us haven't even really learned until recently, right? So school starts. My senior year, I'm supposed to be on the running for valedictorian, and I can't even imagine waking up tomorrow. We've talked about suicide in a little different ways. Every day is different, and every time is different for everybody. Every thought is different for everybody. But for me, it was kind of like that. Well, why am I here if God doesn't want me and the devil doesn't want me? Like, what is the point? I just felt rejected by everybody. And so I tried 3 different times, couldn't die. Had no purpose, no self-worth, and I really didn't want to go to college. I didn't think that was going to help me. You talk about flashbacks and nightmares, and they're on repeat, and in each dream or in each moment where somebody you think is coming at you, you're always in self-defense mode. You're always trying to fight the bear. And we choose the bear every time, right? So I struggled with just being awake. And when school started, I was president of all these clubs before I started school. So I was valedictorian or working to valedictorian, but I was student council president. I was National Honor Society president. Like, I was going somewhere. And all of that got dismissed. I got calls from those people who they were the advisors, and they said, "Hey, Alicia, we heard about your reputation this summer. We're going to ask you to step down. We don't want that in our club." Like, what do you do? Because the people who are supposed to be helping you are accusing you. So I managed to get through a few weeks of school before my original rapist, the quarterback of our football team, who became a senior full ride to Michigan State, came home to pass, the crown at homecoming. And he walks right up to me in the parking lot, and he puts his elbow into my chest, and he says, "We're cool, right?" Meaning, be quiet. The coach quits, moves to a new school. So here's the part that I didn't tell you. For almost 5 to 10 years before all of this happened, he had started this other crime. Human trafficking is also very directly linked to money laundering. And his mom was a professor at the University of Michigan, had access to the black market in Ypsilanti, bought a whole bunch of fake Rolex watches, and brought them down to small town. And the guys were selling them and getting a piece of the cut. And he called them scholarships to college. And the parents consented to opening bank accounts and letting the money funnel through them. And now they're being washed into the cycle of education. Okay? I didn't know any of that. What I find out about halfway through the year, after my math teacher said, "Hey, Alicia, we're going to have an end of the semester party, but not that kind of party," my athletic director came up to me and he said, "This is the pinnacle question. When you find somebody who is struggling, this, for whatever reason, opens the door." He said, "What happened to you? Not what did you do, not why did you, but what happened to you?" And I guess I blurted it out really quickly, like, "I don't know, I think I was raped. Why?" And he's like, "Well, that's not what I thought you were going to say. So why don't you meet me in my office every Friday? We're going to get you to college. You're going to college. There's no reason for you not to go to college." And he distracted me, right? And he got me focused on that. And then he started an investigation, and law enforcement got involved. And I found out from the investigator that only him and the chief were allowed to talk about my case because of how many influential people had bought children. There were 33 other victims just like me. He had done it at a school before mine. My school quit and moved to a new school and had new victims. They all rallied. "We're going to take this guy down. Alicia, we think that you can lead this thing. We need you to help the victims testify." And I was like, "No. No, I got to go to Florida. I got accepted into this school without football, and I'm going to make it work down there." Right? But my mom said this, and this is the second thing I want you to think about saying to people. If not you, then who? Who's going to stop this guy? Who's going to make the victims come forward? Like, who's going to help navigate this? You have such a powerful testimony. We need to use it. And I guess I said okay because I convinced my dad to co-sign my my student loans that replaced my ride to college. And I came down here and I had to fail my entire first semester of school because of absences, because literally this is what my advisor told me: "You're in college, we don't play like that." And so I failed my first semester going to court and school. I had to ride up and down the elevator with my rapists and their parents. Bless your heart. All right, like it tore up my family. It tore up my community. It tore up the city. We found out that like the president of the Board of Education was in some of these parties. Our SRO officer was at some of these parties. We had all these victims. And when it came down to going to court, everybody bailed. So it was just me versus my hometown school district. I had to sit through court, and I remember one time the defending attorney said, well, if you can't really remember, how do we know that you didn't rape them? But that's my first moment in thinking, it happens to boys too. These kids were vulnerable, dude. Like, they didn't really mean to do that, but I couldn't say anything. Yeah, maybe they were bad, maybe they were evil, but they were under the influence of an adult who was supposed to take care of us, and they didn't. We win court, yay! I throw in the yay because it's like, you don't really feel victorious. I mean, you just got your entire life spread upon everybody, and you can't say much. You know, you really can't say much in there. And I'd been holding it all together, and we won, and he got 7 years of prison. 7 years of prison. And while he was in prison, because he is a master manipulator, he also got a law degree when he got out. And then he embezzled $140,000 in 4 months from a vulnerable family, and he got caught and had the same judge we had. And now he's in prison for the rest of his life. So he's there, right? I have this newspaper article that says, if it wasn't for the girl in the hot tub, we wouldn't know how evil this man was. Like, that was my claim to fame, right, for putting this guy away for life. I won't say it got easy. In fact, that's where it actually gets worse. And I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to make it quick. That's why you buy the book. But it didn't get easier. I learned that I knew how now to self-exploit. I knew how to make money off of my body. I knew that if I couldn't get a job, I could become an escort, because prostitutes are dangerous. They're dirty. They're that. But I could do this over here. And I started working in the strip clubs here. I started selling drugs. I started doing a lot of terrible things to myself. You hurt the people you love the most. Thank you, Walter, for saying that. I couldn't be trusted. I became a manipulator. I hurt a lot of people. But I got, and this is my claim to my Jesus story, I guess, is I finally figured it out in 2016. I was at a church, and I heard this pastor say, stop chasing the world for your purpose. Stop looking to others for your purpose. Get down on your knees and ask God for what breaks his heart for you. You were created for something specific. It's not about them. It's not a conference call, right? And when I did that, and I was very vulnerable. I get down on my knees, and I'm like, God, this is disgusting. Why would you make me do this? And in my closet, right? I said, if you're real, what breaks your heart for me? He said, find my missing children. And I was like, whose children? I can't have kids. Part of my uterus has been removed from HPV and other issues I've had in my life. And my doctor has already told me, you're not having kids. You might as well consider IVF, but really adoption is going to be your best bet because your uterus can't hold kids. Whose kids? And then I started learning about human trafficking. And I knew that's what he meant. And I got really involved. I started one of the first safe houses in our area, led that for 5 years, and then had another trauma and found out that I was pregnant with my third child, because God is so good. I had 3 beautiful babies, biologically born, and I said no to epidural because I was gonna really feel it. And broke me again, you guys. I told you that long-term care. You know what my first thought was when I couldn't find childcare and I was asked to step down from my profession? At least there's OnlyFans now. That was my thought. Holding this tiny baby, married for 10 years. That was my thought. And I was like, this can't be the end. There's got to be more. So we built survivor-led solutions on the idea that we need lived experience experts to be able to help navigate care so that we can really do leadership well. You should always have a survivor of whatever cause you have sitting at the head of the table with you. They don't have to be necessarily the CEO, but we are, right? We don't have to necessarily be the vice president, but we can. But we should be sitting at the decision-making table, because we know those gaps that Walter looks for, and we know what didn't work for us, and we know how to fill them. And if we can just get somebody to listen to us, then we can do the work together and we can build something amazing. So we've been doing that. We have over 125 survivor leaders nationwide and Canada that sit at our monthly calls, and we just talk about what ideas. We're building legislation. We're creating a survivor leader certification course. I'm actually partnering with UWF to build that out. So every clinician, criminal justice major, nurse will have some sort of understanding from Survivor Lens, their trainings. It's beautiful. And, I'm blessed. Like I really am. When I stopped drinking, when I stopped doing drugs, when I stopped putting me first, God said, now the doors can open. My red light became a green light. And I've been running ever since. So July 31st, on Friday at 551 Creighton Road, we got our first office. It's so cool, and it's so cute. And it's something that I haven't had. I've been doing this work for 12 years, and I've never had a place to rest my head. I've been a mobile office in my car, and I've been hit by a lot of cars, so it's really devastating. I know the enemy wants me to go down, and God's just like, nope, not today. And anyway, we're doing that ribbon cutting at 12:30. I would love for you to be there. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We've got all the socials, but my heart is, thank you, Steph, for letting me share one more time, right? Because the fight's not over, and everybody's got a place in it. And it doesn't have to be my cause, but it is look at your family really closely and hug them a little tighter, because we don't know what they're going through in the moment. We really don't. And we can't assume we know. So we need to ask, what happened to you today? It doesn't have to be sad. It can be good. And then I would just tell you my message as I go is, do what you do really, really well, and just add a little anti-trafficking to it, because it's here. It's not going away. It's modern day slavery. It was in the Bible, all the way back to Joseph and before that, really. So just think about, it's not a scary word. It's not a scary topic. Addiction is not a scary word or a scary topic. Domestic violence is not a scary word or a scary topic. We make it scary when we put shame and doubt and guilt on it. It's really just, what is somebody going through, and how can we support them best? And we ask them that. So anyway, thank you guys for your time. Thank you for today. Thank you, the church.